Welcome to Hockey Night in New York, where Islanders hockey always reigns supreme. Whether you were raised at the barn in Uniondale or born in the stable at Belmont, Hockey Night in New York is your home for all things Isles. Now, let's drop the puck and get this party started.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is Hockey Night in New York. Welcome to the program, everyone. It is Sunday, March 19th, 2023. Coming at you live from Floored Media in Rockville Center. Another fantastic show coming up for you tonight. Justin Bourne of Sportsnet and author of the brand new book, Down and Back, on alcohol, family, and life in hockey, will be joining us. Looking forward to that. My name is Sean Cuthbert. With me tonight is Mr. Chris Botta. Christopher Botta, how are you?
I'm doing great, Sean. How are you? And who's that voice? Who's the narrator in the beginning there? Who's doing the voiceover?
That's a fine gentleman that we hired on the outside. You know?
Very impressive.
Yeah, not bad, right?
I like it. I appreciate that every week.
He does a great job. So welcome to the show, everybody. Before we get started, I want to remind you all that we are proud to be presented by Blue Line Deli and Bagels, located at 719 West Jericho Turnpike in Huntington, new location 217 Carlton Avenue in East Islip, and of course, the UBS Arena at Belmont. Also proud to be sponsored by Lost Farmer Brewing Company, located at 63A 2nd Street in Mineola. And I want to let you all know we are hosting another viewing party. The next one coming up on Sunday, April 2nd. The Islanders will face off against the Carolina Hurricanes at 6 p.m. We'll have your pregame at 5 p.m. Going to do it the same way we always do. Raffles, prizes, lots of fun, drink specials, food specials, all that good stuff. So come on down, have a great time, watch the Isles play the Canes at the tail end of the little playoff push here. So that'll be a lot of fun. And also proud to be sponsored by Main Street Board Game Cafe, located at 307 Main Street in Huntington Village. More on them later. So Chris Botta, like Fievel in American Tail, the Islanders go west.
That's a reference.
Yeah, deep dive, yeah. They go 2-1. Struggle in the beginning. They had that 5-2 loss against LA. They bounce back the next night against the Ducks with the 6-3 win. And then they take care of business last night in San Jose with the 4-1 win. So 4 out of 6 points. Not too shabby. How are we looking after that trip out west?
You mentioned the race for the wild card spots. It's a race that's narrowing. I mean,
sure is.
A week or so ago, we were being generous by just cutting Detroit. Now we sit here a week later, and this isn't about like getting cocky or arrogant. I think it's just about being realistic.
Sure.
Ottawa has gone by the wayside. Yeah. I believe I said something on last week. Like, let's wait for them to lose a game first, right? Because they were on a roll.
Right.
Now they haven't won since. Right. And then Buffalo is exposed themselves to be a complete fraud. They're not ready once again for prime time. And everybody will pick them to make the playoffs next year. It's like as if it's like a done deal.
Right.
I could say a lot about Buffalo and their cover and the way they're covered and what people say about them. But I know this is an Islanders show, but to me this past week is as much about the teams around them, not just the ones who fell out like the ones I mentioned, but also the teams right around them, like Pittsburgh, like Florida, who's playing very well. So that's the major storyline for me right now. As for the Islanders, they took care of business. It wound up going chalk. I thought it might go the other way, where maybe they would beat LA and then lose to one of the stinky teams. To their credit, Anaheim had played very well prior to that game. They didn't look like it, I thought, against the Islanders, but they were something like 5-1-2 going into that. And I also give a lot of credit to the San Jose Sharks. I thought, they played like a team that had nothing to lose. They played loose. They played wide open. It was a fun game to watch, so much so that I thought even when the Islanders went up after the second period, I thought San Jose could make a run. But the Islanders are showing their experience. They're showing their veteran leadership. They're having some key guys come through for them. Yeah. It's really impressive. And this is not what Ottawa got. This is not what Buffalo got. This is not what Washington's got. So the thing about the Islanders being more of a playoff team or experienced team, it is shining through right now.
Yeah, no question. Like you said, the teams on the list, so to speak, is kind of dwindled down to it's a 3-team race now. You got the Penguins, Islanders, and the Florida Panthers. You have the Islanders at 80 points. You have Pittsburgh at 78. You have Florida at 77. Both Pittsburgh and Florida still have 2 games in hand on the Islanders. But as long as the Islanders kind of keep taking care of business like they are now, things should be all right. Now, the competition is going to get a little tougher. We'll talk about that a little later on. But there's a lot of positives to take out of this West Coast swing because, if they were going to lose a game on that trip, it was going to be the LA one just because, they were tougher competition. Mm-hmm. And, they actually started out pretty good in that game. Just to take a couple of notes out of these games, the penalties are what derailed that whole game. You had Matt Martin, who probably should have known better, tosses the helmet, gets the penalty, and it kind of just spirals the Islanders out after Zach Parise kind of takes that accidental knee-on-knee penalty, and they just can't recover. They give up 2 goals, on the 5-on-3, on the 5-on-4, and it's pretty much over from there. They can't bounce back. You have a 4-point night from Palmieri against the Ducks. He's looking great. Sorokin, I think first time all season, he gets the back-to-back starts. Performed pretty well against the Ducks. And then Saturday, you have the J.G. Pajot with the shorthanded goal. Romanov had a good game. He has that hit, and he gets, we talked about this multiple times now, right? A nice, big, clean hit, and he has to answer the bell because the guy went down and got his clock clean, right? So maybe just talk a little bit about, those notes in the games. We can go from there.
Well, I mean, the Martin and Parise thing, especially the Martin thing, it was just unfortunate. It might have been a game they lost anyway, and Matt Martin has got so much goodwill with this franchise and a career. Right. This is a guy who, and I can tell you, there's still people in and around the Islanders organization who a long, long time ago thought he was a depth player in the minors, and probably that's where he would peak. So to have this career, to be a special player, a really good Islander for a long time, if this is like the one moment, so we could live with that. So 4 points out of 6, not bad. You mentioned Palmieri. He's a real standout for me. And then there are the more obvious ones like Nelson, who just continues to astound. A reminder, they're doing this without Matthew Barzal. So yes. All good signs. What Ottawa doesn't have enough of, although we were told that Claude Giroux would be the answer to that. What Buffalo does not have enough of, despite what seems like endless sonnets about Tage Thompson, who's a great player, and a lot of other players there. They stink. The Islanders' steadiness, their experience, their leadership, all that corny crap, right now is serving them very well.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I guess one negative note from the San Jose game was Sebastian Aho got into about 4.5 minutes of ice time, and then he got injured. Upper body injury. Do we know that that's going to be anything beyond day to day?
Yeah, no, I have no.
Right. No, I know. I mean,
I know that was more rhetorical than anything. Listen, the only thing I'll say that because I knew it would come up was Pittsburgh traded for Kulikov, and now it appears to have lost him. This is the time of year where teams lose guys. The Islanders obviously are missing Matthew Barzal. This is just part of it. It's going to test their depth coming in to these final 11 games. But I think where we are now, because especially the way Pittsburgh's playing, and it's tough to see. I'm not like they're going to hang in there, I would imagine. But to go to the Garden and lose 6-0, Buffalo loses 7-0. Yeah, we gotta acknowledge the Rangers for that. Appreciate that. But what can you say? That you're going to lose guys, but the Islanders have a chance here that they don't even. What's cool about these final 11 games is they just kind of have to be themselves right now. 6 wins will get you in, and probably less at this point. So what they need to avoid is, again, some long streak. They did. They had the 2 losses, but then they corrected with these 2 wins. As long as they avoid that, I think they should be in pretty good shape. Florida, right now, I would say, Islanders, Florida, Pittsburgh in that order. But we shall. I don't see enough of Pittsburgh. I don't see enough good in Pittsburgh that makes me think they're going to be able to finish this off.
No, listen, I hear you, but it is funny because it seems like, the last 2 to 3 weeks, however, whenever we kind of started really looking at this race, it seems like every week the contenders have changed. 1 week I'm saying, I'm a little scared of Buffalo. Obviously, you just covered that. They're done. Another week, Ottawa came up and they were winning some games. Oh, it looks like they're in the mix. And then even Detroit for a short bit a couple of weeks ago, right? And it's flip-flopped every week, and I wonder what the conversation's going to be next week after we get through these couple of games and just see what these teams do. I didn't have a chance to look ahead to see who Florida and Pittsburgh are playing this week, but, barring those results, and, the Islanders have that tough game against Toronto on Tuesday at home, coming up. It's just going to be interesting to see, and it may very well come down to the last game in April, where we're all kind of shaking in our boots, wondering what's going to happen with these games.
Yeah, the concern about Pittsburgh is that I watch them and I see Crosby and I see Malkin, and then even like some of their role players are some of the better ones in the league and guys that you would rely on. And then there's Gensel, he seems to be there for a big spot. But then, like, I watched them play on prime time against the Rangers in the Garden in a game that was everything to them and not so much to the Islanders. And that's the same team that lost 6-0. So defense is shoddy. Goaltending is erratic. So, if the key is, like, when they do, if they get that signature win that somehow inspires them, can they keep it going? But right now, I don't see it. I'm not sitting here saying the Islanders in the playoffs by any stretch. I'm just saying if I'm ranking them right now,
sure,
I'm thinking Islanders, Florida, Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And real quickly before we go to break for Justin, is you kind of alluded to this during the recap of the games, is they're getting production through the lineup with Matt Barzal being out, right? You're seeing Brock Nelson's being Brock Nelson. But then you have Pajot coming back. It's like he missed no time. Right in the mix. He had 4 points on the trip, 2 goals, 2 assists. Zach Parise, 2 goals and an assist. Kyle Palmieri has a 5-point trip. Hudson Fashion with a goal and assist. He's still kind of chugging away, right?
Okay.
And then you have the new guy, Pierre Engvall, unleashed on the New York Islanders. 5 points in his last 4, 2 goals, 2 assists on the trip, and that's actually now 5 total points through the 7 games he's been with the Islanders. So you have these guys that are chipping in when guys like Bo Horvat isn't producing on the score sheet and Matt Barzal not being in the lineup.
Yeah, Horvat's a funny one because the goal numbers are not there, but he is doing everything else. And if you look at the numbers on the power play, if you look at the numbers on the penalty kill, especially, he's still doing his job. So I'm not concerned about him. But then all the other veterans are stepping up. Am I a believer in Engvall? No, I think I'm going to always be okay. For a while. I want to see it for a longer stretch, but he was brought here with a specific job, which was to see if he could be a cog in trying to get them into the playoffs. And overall, even though he has his dull moments that you can tell the coach wonders about, he's doing his part.
He is. All right, folks. Well, I want to thank you all for tuning in to twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY. And, of course, your favorite podcast providers later on. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Justin Bourne of Sportsnet and author of Down and Back on alcohol, family, and life in hockey will be joining us. We'll be right back.
I don't want to hear it. It's over. I can't believe they fell short again.
Yeah, but they played so well. They made it to the semifinals 2 years in a row.
The semifinals aren't the cup. God damn it, I hate those Lightning.
They'll get another shot at it next year.
I don't even want to talk about it anymore, all right? They lost, okay? Let me just sit here and enjoy the one thing that makes me a little bit happy. This fresh, delicious, tasty, meaty, turkey-filled Blue Line combo. I eat 3 every day to help keep me strong.
Hey, Donnie, can I have one of those?
Coming right up. Talk about a blast from the Blue Line.
Blue Line Deli and Bagels. Our goal is to make you a hero.
Miss the days of mixtapes and arcades? Love the taste of a bold IPA or maybe an ice-cold lager? There's a place where all of those magical things come together. Lost Farmer Brewing Company. At 63A East 2nd Street in the heart of Mineola, Lost Farmer combines a love of the 80s and a passion for quality beer to create brews that can only be described as gnarly, radical, and totally tubular. The retro vibe of the tasting bar will amp up your nostalgia while the blend of both local and exotic ingredients amp up your taste buds. Beer not your thing? Crack open a can of cider or sip a Chardonnay on the extended patio. Order up from the snack menu. You can even bring your own. If you're more of a homebody, pick up a growler to go or order online at lostfarmerbrewing.com. And for all of Long Island's hockey fans, Lost Farmer created the delicious Stable Shaker American Lager to celebrate the newly built UBS Arena at Belmont Park. Whether you're at the stable for a hockey game, concert, or a comedy show, you can find Stable Shaker by can and draft around the arena. So raise a cup to the next cup with Lost Farmer Brewery, the future of Long Island craft beer.
Thanks for giving some time to our sponsors. Ready to talk more Isles? The train rolls on right here on Hockey Night in New York.
And welcome back. It's Chris Botta, joined by Sean Cuthbert. And now our guest is Justin Bourne, the author of Down and Back on Hockey, Alcoholism, and Family, and the NHL analyst for Sportsnet. How are you, Justin? What's going on, bud?
I'm doing good, Chris. How are you guys? We're just tucked the kids in. This is the best part of my weekend is Sunday at night when I put the toys away and they're asleep.
Well, thanks for a few minutes of your time. I know 8 o'clock is bath time around there, so I really appreciate that. Congrats on the book, but first off, we got to ask you about, I think we could call them your Islanders as well. What do you think about where things stand with them in the playoff race? Sean and I were just talking how we think it's down to now just the Islanders, Pittsburgh, and Florida for the 2 wild card spots. But what do you think?
Yeah, no, I mean, they're in a pretty good spot. The 2 things that I really like about what's happening in terms of teams behind them is every time Pittsburgh seems to run up against a game that matters, they're not very good, which is encouraging. They're a -3 goal differential team. They're a flawed team. And Florida, for whatever reason, just after last season, doesn't have it this year. They don't have the juice. I know they have some good players. It feels like things started so poorly for them and they've been trying to dig out of this hole. Just not a huge believer in their decor. I really think the Islanders are, and I'm not just saying this because of their show, the strongest of the teams kind of in that pocket. And, if anyone's going to make it hard on any sort of top seed in either division, I mean, the Islanders got some veteran guys. They should be able to do it.
That's what I was going to say. If you're Boston, of all the teams that you could play, or Carolina for that matter, are you thinking that, you know what, we'll take on Bobrovsky and Florida's D, or we'll take on Pittsburgh with their holes, but that Islander team, even though Trotz isn't there, they still have the potential. Are the Islanders probably the team that you would least want to face if you were one of the top ones?
Yeah, I said this on our show on Real Kipper and Bourne, we're a Leaf show, but we still talk about the races. And I said, the hardest team for any of those top seeds will be the Islanders, just based on 2 things. They got the best goalie, one of the best goalies in the league, if you like Vasilevsky more or whatever, but he's in that category of guys who can just steal you hockey games. And then they have a lot of veteran guys who do it the right way. And say what you will about that, they're in the right spots. They're hard on pucks. They do the right things. So if you're getting saves at one end and it's tough to go through the group, if they get a bounce or 2, it's, they can beat anyone. And by the way, Carolina minus Svechnikov, I'm not 100% convinced they're that much of a favorite over the Islanders, if they get in. So, Boston, I don't think anyone's going to beat Boston. Islanders would make it hard, but I actually like the Isles odds if they can finish in the top wild card spot and then get the winner of the Metro.
Hey, Justin, how's it going? Sean here. Pleasure having you on the show. Just to follow up on this playoff race, maybe to everybody's surprise a little bit here, the Islanders have found success without Matt Barzal in the lineup, going 8-3-1. What do you think about this team has kind of led to them coming together and maybe rallying around each other, I suppose, and being able to pull out these wins in a very crucial time in the season without arguably their best player on the team?
I think there can be a short burst when you're minus one of your best offensive guys where everyone recognizes that you can't be passengers anymore and just watch someone else do it. And you have to step up and you get a little bit more out of some guys for a little bit of a time. Not sustainable. You need good offensive players. And obviously Barzal is, among the handful of best players at taking the puck from one end and skating it to the other, which, helps everyone out. So long-term, you want to have him in there, but they've got a nice little push. And I really, I don't want to beat the whole veteran thing too much to a pulp, but this is a crucial time. They've come up against big games, and the 2 times they beat Pittsburgh, those are pivotal games, and they've shown that when they have these moments where, okay, we kind of need one here, they've been able to find it. They're a frustrating group because you watch how good the Isles can look, when they need to, and then sometimes it hasn't been there throughout the season, but as of late it has been, and you add Barzal to the mix. I know him and Horvat were starting to find a little chemistry. Hopefully they can find a few more goals because that's all it takes for this team is can they put the puck in the net enough.
Yeah, no question about it. And just before you came on, we were talking about how the Islanders have been finding production kind of through the middle of the lineup, right? Maybe the guys in the middle to bottom 6. And one of those guys is Pierre Engvall, who's suddenly kind of found his stride with the Islanders. Does he have the potential to maybe play a bigger role with the Islanders now that he's maybe not I don't know, tucked behind all those stars in Toronto, like Austin Matthews and John Tavares. Now, I'm certainly not alluding to the fact that he's going to reach any level near those guys, but does he have the potential to maybe be a bigger producer for this New York Islanders team, especially when they need the scoring that you're talking about?
Yeah, it's a really curious question, because you're right. In Toronto, they basically said to him, and I was with the Marlies when he was kind of coming up, which, the Leafs farm team, and they basically said to him, if you want to play for the Leafs, you're going to kill penalties. You got to get the puck in deep, and you got to do the right things. And he doesn't really, he doesn't bang for his size. He's not a big physical guy, but, he does a lot of things that help your team play on the right end of the rink. And he hasn't been given any offensive opportunity, like no power play time, no elite line mates, never tried in the top 6 with the best guys. So I don't really know. Like, he can skate. He's huge. He can shoot it, and he's been given no opportunity. So, yeah, it seems like a candidate who could do it, but every time in Toronto it would go well for a while, he just, like, kind of turns his brain off, and it was like, come on, we know it's in there. So we'll see how long he can, with more opportunity, if maybe he can find a consistent way to contribute.
So speaking of your time with the Marlies, before we get into some of the tougher, more challenging aspects of your incredible book, memoir, your story, Down and Back, on somewhat of a lighter note, you have in the course of a span of about 1 page, probably more insight into Lou Lamoriello with 2 things, one very positive regarding per diem, and one a little off the rails a little bit about a subject we talk about a lot here, about being clean shaven. That is more than is usually said about him, because everybody else around Lou is like in the game, whereas you're a media person. I was wondering for our audience, since it is in the book, and I'm not going to give away the other 300 pages, but can you share your experience with Lou?
Yeah. Well, one of my first ones was so I'm the AHL video coach, which is literally I'm a nobody in the organization. The Leafs coaching staff was at the Team Canada at the World Cup, so it was our staff was with the Toronto Maple Leafs in training camp. We were playing the Buffalo Sabres. I had like 3 or 4 days growth, and it was the day before we were going to get 2 weeks off between our camp, and so I wanted to let it grow. I prefer to have a beard. And I walked in that day, and DJ Smith was like, "You out of your mind?" He was the assistant coach. I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Lou is going to kill you when he sees that beard." And I was like, "I'm the AHL video coach. I'm going to go huddle in the corner, and he won't even think of me for 1 second." Lou walked in, and he looks around the room, looks at me, and he goes, "Can someone lend me $5 effing so I can buy this guy a goddamn razor blade to shave his face?" And I kind of laughed, and he walked up to me and said, "Don't you laugh." And he got right up towards me, like slow walking. I'm 6'2". What's Lou, 5'8"? Like he's looking up at me, and I was terrified of this like 70-some-year-old man who I was towering over. But he just has this way about him. Like, he means business. And to his credit, when you hold everyone accountable like that, everyone knows he means it and behaves. So, maybe there's something to it. It seemed like absolute insanity to me, but I get the idea of what Lou's trying to do.
And on the positive side, there was the per diem that you noted. That was, something that, again, it's another, there are good things said about him. There are tougher things said about him, including by me on this show. But I liked what you said about the per diem, because it said a lot. As somebody who occasionally got those envelopes when I got on the Islanders plane, I know how much of a difference that can make in someone's life, like it did you. So can you talk about that, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So Lou had a policy that, like, he wanted everyone in the organization to be treated like, it was the NHL. And that was part of what should draw good people to the organization is, you may spend some time in the American League, but, we didn't share rooms in the minors. We all had our own. I had a king bed in my own room as the AHL video coach. We got NHL per diem. We got taken out to nice meals. Like, of all the ways that Lou expects everyone to fall in line, he takes care of you. And it does breed a level of commitment, I guess, loyalty, those were good times. And I felt that, towards the organization who, even though I thought of myself as this nobody, didn't treat me like one. So it's not so bad working your way up through the system, and it gives you a chance to have success too. So yeah, Lou, he's been around a few times. He knows what he's doing with developing people.
So it's an amazing book, Down and Back. I said down and out. Never mind. You made it back. By the way, how much were you tempted to call it, like Reborn or something like that?
You know what?
That it was on you wrote that down somewhere. What was that?
The Bourne books ruined me. The one thing was I literally today at Sportsnet there on my stall, like in my wardrobe change, it says Jason Bourne, because people the books have ruined people.
That's
so
funny.
Yeah, I stayed away from Bourne puns.
Has it been, you have your own show and the podcast, great, with Real Kipper and all the work you do on Sportsnet and Hockey Night in Canada, your dream came true, your goal, you called it. But is it tough to talk about the book? I know it was tough to write it, but is it tough when you've gone on to do interviews like this to talk about it?
No, it's really not. Like I'm in such a good place in my life, and I'm fortunate for that, that it's a positive story and one that I'm proud to have come through. So yeah, no, to be honest, it's one of my favorite parts of work and life right now is having these sort of discussions and, sharing my experience with other people who are going through similar things. And I've heard from a lot of those people, and that to me has been the most meaningful part of it all.
I actually don't want to give it away, so I won't ask you to recount it in any way, but I will say to the listeners out there and the people watching us live right now that the first chapter, which is a story about Justin and his dad and a Stanley Cup ring, is just absolutely extraordinary. It's Shakespearean. It's whatever favorite literature author you want to call it. And then, so get the book and read that chapter. It's long and it's worth it all. It's worth the price of admission right there. And then your relationship with Dad, the great Bob Bourne, a Dynasty member, 4-time Stanley Cup winner with the Islanders, is so up and down that to the very last page, I don't know where it's going. But I was wondering if just literally right now at 8:26 on Sunday in March, how's your dad and how are you both doing?
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate the question. And he's good and we're good. When the book came out, you mentioned the first chapter. That's a hard chapter to read if you're my dad, right? Like it's, contains some sort of hard truths in there. But to his credit, he could have handled the book, one of two ways, which is basically go tell me to kick rocks and see you later, or, feel, I guess, what I was trying to get across and reach out and work on things. And that was the way he chose to handle it. He kind of was apologetic after having read the whole book about certain things that maybe he just didn't understand. And, wanted to kind of reach out and he wants to see the kids more. And we're going to go home to Kelowna and we'll visit with them and, hopefully keep him a part of the kid's life. Because there was a time there where if you'd asked me, I'd be like, I don't think that's likely. I do think it's likely, and I'm hopeful. And, that's what else is the best outcome I could have hoped for from the book, was that he would take it the way he did and support it. And he's done nothing but that. So I'm proud of that and proud of him for doing that.
That's fantastic, Justin. And obviously this book is a very personal account. And I guess to get into your head a little bit, when you sit down and you decide to share these stories so publicly, right? Because, maybe a personal account like this, a lot of people out there would want to keep that stuff to themselves, right? Or, within the family or whatever it is. And so what kind of made you decide to say, hey, this is a story I feel like I want to share with the world and want to get out there so that people can kind of get an insight on what it was like to live that life?
Yeah, my initial thought was that I wanted to write a hockey book, and I do have a whole wealth of experience in that regard. And so I wanted to touch on a lot of like the major cultural issues along the way. So whether that's partying and my own experience with drinking and alcohol and training camps and getting cut and all these different elements, I wanted to hit on them all. So it kind of only made sense to use my own chronology, my own timeline to tell these stories as they came up in my life. But then you can't tell my story without Dad, right? Like if you're in hockey, you don't know my name without knowing his. It's such a part of my life that, if I wrote it and didn't mention my dad, people would be like, did you maybe miss something here? So right. I found that as I wrote and submitted work to Penguin, they'd be like, where was your dad in all this? And I'd be like, I don't really know, or maybe that's something I need to think more about or look more into this. And I would say the initial intent wasn't to write some sort of like family tell-all. It's just that I can't tell my story without talking about my family. And so I talked with my dad and kind of got his permission. he's comfortable sharing, that he'd been to rehab a few times for alcohol abuse. And in the end, I think we're all happier having who we really are out there and being able to help other people who are going through similar things.
That's great.
Well, I have to say, Justin, I got to say that, you're between you and Brianna's family, the Gillies family, the Bourne family, the most underrated member of your family. And I've known about her like my whole life, but I've never had the pleasure of meeting. And that's your mom, Janice, who I've always heard such incredible things about. And if you read the book, you could even read between the lines by some of the things maybe even that you don't say and everything that she's done for your family. So please give her a hug from me and tell her everybody on Long Island says hello, okay? And then
I will.
And then Clark Gillies, right? We all had the pleasure, your father-in-law, we had the pleasure of watching this guy, premier power forward of his generation, Hall of Famer, 4 Stanley Cup winner. But as it turns out, as you see in the book, his daughter, Brianna, is every bit as tough as him, wouldn't you say?
I think that's a great assessment. When I first got to treatment, she had written me a nice note, which I assure you, everyone does not show up at rehab with a nice note from their wife.
You said, hard on the envelope, right?
Yeah, that's right. And, in that note that she mentions, like her dad, she's a fighter too. And to say,
take your time. We understand.
I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, no, we understand. Remarkable, and your whole story of how you met is just incredible. I was thinking when I read the first chapter that somebody, maybe one of those networks in Canada, could do a series just or a show just on that one chapter. But the whole story of you and Brianna is really amazing, and it's great to say. Hey, I wanna read something. It's a paragraph from your book. And this is the other thing. So this hits me this afternoon, because I actually thought I wasn't going to make it to the end, you son of a gun. It's so damn intense. And it says on this particular date, I rolled my Marley's branded suitcase out through the wide wooden door of Renascent, which was the rehab or center where you went to try to get healed, and onto the front porch, and the world was hardly waiting. Life had sped on. My personal goals were tucked in my back pocket, healing my relationships with my family, getting physically healthy, and my career, a lofty one, getting on Hockey Night in Canada. Congrats. I was left to figure out how to get the world to include me once again, but this time in a positive way. That was in 2019. Do you know what the date was?
Yes, it was March 19th, 4 years ago today, isn't it? That's a great catch.
Unbelievable, huh? So
it is that is unbelievable. And I would say it's.
And by the way, when I asked you to do the damn show, I had no idea. It was 4 years. You walked out. I'm not that good.
Well, I can tell you these are happier times than even every day before that date. So I appreciate you having me. This is awesome.
My last thing then is, what is, for anybody out there watching, listening, and no two things are the same. You talk about that a lot in this book, that your alcoholism is a different thing than maybe somebody else's. But for anybody who's got struggles with any kind of abuse like that, what would be your advice to them, or what are your words of wisdom?
I think the advice is to not wait for something terrible to happen. You get to make the choice about what rock bottom is for you. And sometimes that can just be a certain feeling of shame or a feeling of like you've had enough. And for me, I was this close to real trouble, but I didn't, get divorced, get a DUI, go to jail, hurt someone, do anything, tragic, but it was coming. And I was fortunate that I had the support I did, that I was able to pull out before, running head on into one of those things. And I just think it's a choice. You get to choose rock bottom. And I would encourage people to recognize that now's as good a time as any to call it good.
Well, Justin, outstanding stuff. Pleasure having you back on the show. Appreciate you sharing all that with us. And before we let you go, can you just tell everybody where we can find the book?
Yeah, I think I'm supposed to say cliche that it's available anywhere good books are sold, but it is Barnes & Noble, Amazon, Indigo, all those generic places you can find it.
I got it off Amazon, and fair price, like I said. well worth
I'm
it.
glad to hear it. Well, thanks for helping me promote that aspect of it and getting to chat about the Islanders too, guys.
Thanks, bud. Good luck. Good luck the rest of the season to you and Kipper and everything there. You guys have a great job. Do a great job. Congrats on the show.
Yeah, thanks so much. Maybe we'll chat again during Isles playoffs. How about that?
Best to your family, best to the Gillies too, okay?
All right, thanks so much.
Take care, Justin. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Justin Bourne of Sportsnet and the author of the brand new book, Down and Back, on alcohol, family, and life in hockey. And yeah, that's some tough choice, huh? Sitting down and writing a book like that and kind of sharing all that about yourself, you know?
Yeah, when I read the first chapter, I was like, oh, I wonder what Bob's thinking.
Yeah.
And so apparently he told him before he published, like, this is something I'm going to do, and he was okay with it. And then there's some peaks and valleys along the way, but at the end they're in good terms, and they still are, and that's good. Bob's been through a lot, as we always, the post-hockey career, especially for the players in previous generations where the salaries weren't so steep or maybe a lot more challenging than people realize. So our best to Bob, who's always a terrific guy as well. And I'm not going to totally go through it, but like, how Justin wound up reconnecting with Brianna? Do you know that story?
I don't.
So, all right, just briefly. I'll just tell it to you. I actually think there's probably some people who heard it. But this is actually a really amazing love story.
Okay.
The Bournes and Gillies lived next door to each other when the guys played.
Mm-hmm.
Justin is a little kid. Brianna Gillies was a little kid.
Yeah.
There's pictures of them. In fact, there's a picture of them in a book at like a celebrity softball game, and Tony Danza has his arms around them.
Oh, yeah.
So they were like childhood friends. Then they don't see each other for like 20 years. Then we have a Bob Bourne Islanders Hall of Fame night, and Bob Bourne was the first inductee, and we invited the family. Justin calls me. We don't really know each other at the time. He's playing for Alaska Anchorage. He says, can you make this 2 weeks later so I can go on Thanksgiving break or something like that?
Yeah.
He does. Clark tells him, you're not staying at the Marriott. You're staying with us. So Justin and Bob go to Gilly. So Brianna opens the door. They haven't seen each other in 20 years. Basically been together ever since.
Wow. How about that?
All because of the darn Islanders Hall of Fame.
Yeah. Wow. That's some story.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Pretty
Very
cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think it's time to break. So before we do that, Chris,
then he wonders why we always go longer than I.
Sean, let's try to keep it to an hour tonight. Okay, Chris, sure. All right,
and
no
I'll
problem.
Tell an 8-minute story.
Right. All right. Well, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about Main Street Board Game Cafe, and then we'll break for the next segment.
You got it. Say something for about another 10 seconds.
Yeah, sure. Well, I like the fact that Justin likes the Islanders in this little wild card race.
And rightfully so. I mean, there's reason to feel good about them. Main Street Board Game Cafe in Huntington on Long Island's North Shore. Games for sale and for open play, food and drink, beer and wine, fun and friends. Bring the magic of phones down, eyes up, tabletop board games to your family. Our staff will help you find the right game for you, from old favorites to the hottest new releases. We have everything from strategic to easy party games. Get off your screens and unplug your game for a night your family will remember. Looking for meetups to join? The Magic the Gathering, Dungeons and Dragons, or Game Night Live communities are welcoming for all. We also do parties and corporate events located at 307 Main Street in Huntington Village. Go to mainstboardgamecafe.com for more information. Main Street Board Game Cafe. Find your crowd, unplug your game. By the way, when you were interviewing Justin before, I was like, Sean's got a good radio voice.
Hey, thanks,
Like,
Chris.
did you ever think you'd get it? Like at one point, were you ever on in the go make a run at that earlier? Obviously, you are now. You're very successful now. But
no. I mean, I did sing in bands for a while, so maybe that has a little something to do with it.
Oh,
yeah.
really?
So I've been behind the microphone for a long time. Actually, funny enough, I did some like work for like jingles and stuff like that in the past too.
Really?
Yeah. We can get into that another time. But,
jingles as in singing, or jingles as
yeah.
voiceover?
Like silly
Really?
commercials and stuff like that. Yeah.
Did
So
you know
there's
that,
a little
guys?
experience.
Really? Gotcha. I know your brother's pretty good.
He's all right.
Sells
He's
out
okay.
the frickin' Paramount. That's
Yeah, he's
pretty
doing
good.
all right. Yeah, playing other people's music. I mean, how hard is that?
I know. But it's changing. His brothers in
No,
a
he does
band
a great
that does Kenny Chesney and Jimmy Buffett. And then they seem to add Zach Brown somewhere along the way.
He likes to mix it up.
And
yeah.
They know what they're doing.
No, they do a great job. They put on a great show.
The Paramount again. They could probably play it out. They could probably sell it out once a month.
Yeah, and they just might start doing that. We'll see. But thanks for the compliment, Chris. Appreciate
I didn't mean to make this about your brother. I'm back to you.
Right. Well, in any case, folks, we want to thank you all for tuning in to twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY and your favorite podcast providers. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back.
New York Islanders fans, Sunday night is Hockey Night in New York. Whether you were raised at the barn in Uniondale or born in the stable at Belmont, tune in to Hockey Night in New York. Catch us live from Floored Media in Rockville Center, Sunday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, as we cover all things Islanders at twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY. All episodes are also available on YouTube and all your favorite podcast providers. And for all you social butterflies, you can follow at HockeyNightNY on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram for all the latest updates. Hockey Night in New York. The best night of the week for any Islanders fan.
And now, it's time for What's on Tap, a look ahead at the Islanders' upcoming schedule.
That's right, folks. We're going to look ahead and see what the Islanders are doing this week. So Tuesday, the Toronto Maple Leafs come into town. Isles versus the Leafs. Islander fans always get up for that one. And it's a big one. Toronto's one of the top teams there in the Atlantic Division. It's going to be a tough one. Probably the toughest game of the upcoming games this week. And then Friday, they have a couple days off. They go into Columbus to play the basement-dwelling Columbus Blue Jackets. And then Saturday, they play the Buffalo Sabres, who once again got trounced today, 7-0. That is a 5 p.m. start at UBS Arena on Saturday. So there's your 3 games on tap. Chris Botta, what say you?
Well, a couple of important things to note is that even though they play Buffalo on the second game of a back-to-back, Buffalo plays in New Jersey. Plays at home against New Jersey the night before.
Okay.
So the teams are on equal ground there. Another thing worth noting is just as the Islanders have that game in Columbus, Buffalo had a similar type game where they went to Philadelphia. And that goes, again, back to the point of, and I don't mean to pick on the Sabres, but all the teams below them, too, are in this category, too. And, yes, I get it. The Islanders got trounced in Boston that one game, like the one stinker of the last 2 or 3 weeks, right? But Buffalo goes to Philadelphia and loses 5-1. I think it was the final of 5-2.
Right.
Just not good coaching, not good, And I actually am saying this as a way to not to blow too much smoke up this current Islanders team's butt, but it's just a reminder of what we do have here, which is an experienced team.
Yes.
That they are built for this thing. So we will see if they could finish it up. The Toronto game, I don't know what I do know Islander fans who are starting to not like this game. It feels sometimes like the Rangers, where the Islanders play the Leafs better on the road sometimes than they do at home.
Yeah.
So I've seen tweets from fans saying, well, that they better get this one in San Jose because I don't like their chances Tuesday. They'll be well rested, so will Toronto.
Yeah, for
what
sure.
say you?
What says me? Well, I think there is something to be said about the teams that are out of it with nothing to lose, kind of playing loose, and that's why you're seeing results like that, where Philadelphia beating a team that's fighting for a wild card spot, and maybe the Islanders have a hard time with the Blue Jackets on Friday because they're playing loose too, and they still have weapons like Johnny Gaudreau over there, even though it's a tire fire over there. Yep. But on any given night, these teams can show up and surprise you. I mean, you look at the game against the Ducks, 25 seconds in, you go down 1-0, you're like, oh boy, we're in for a long one here, and thankfully they turn it around. But which is why it does speak to the experience that yourself and Justin were talking about, is that this team knows what they got to do to get in. Yeah. And that's an advantage that they have. Yeah,
that Sharks game is kind of the template, and that's what they're going to have to do in Columbus too. I don't know, the Sharks really, I was like, Meyer's not there anymore, but they were still, they were loose, they were fast, and there were a couple of times where I just thought, the Islanders better hold on here, or this could, and then they, Parisi, of course, from your guy Romanov, gets the key goal. It's like the Islanders just kind of held them off.
Right.
got the goalie, but then they go down there and score. And they're going to need more things like that in these games, like at Columbus.
So with these 3 games ahead, are we going to go with the Meatloaf method here, and 2 out of 3 ain't bad, 4 out of 6 points?
I mean, now I believe the way this is stacking up, that would be good enough. But that means they're going to, if that happens, that means chances are they're going to lose one of those home games. So I got to think this through. But for that,
you can get back to
the last 2 weeks, I would have said 5 out of 6 points are what's needed. 4 right now would be good enough in these next 3 games.
Yeah, I think so. I think, look, obviously you try to get all 6, but I think you can accept the loss to the Leafs as long as you take care of business against those other 2 teams later in the week. And what's interesting is they're going to have those couple of days off. I imagine maybe one of those games in hand for Pittsburgh and Florida ends up, coming off the board. I'm not sure. Again, I didn't look ahead at the schedule, but they do get a couple of nights off. They get to rest a little bit. Maybe, that affords Sebastian Aho to get healthy and maybe come, even if he's not in Tuesday, he can come back later on in the week. We're still waiting on word on that injury. But because, look, I don't know if a guy like Samuel Bolduc or Parker Wotherspoon are ready to kind of slot in here and help out. So you're going to see maybe even Noah Dobson's minutes go down, kind of by extension if he was still going to be paired up with Aho, although he was playing with Pelech. So we'll see what they do. But hopefully Aho can use those days off to get some rest.
Florida is at Philly on Tuesday and then home to Toronto on Thursday.
Okay.
Those are their next 2 games.
Okay.
I'll see if we can go one more. And then, of course, it's so funny. It seems like everything runs parallel. And then on Saturday, they host the Rangers, which is usually a Rangers home game in Florida.
Gotta say, been finding myself rooting for the Rangers a lot lately.
I mean, either way.
Hate to say it, but,
Yeah, no, the Rangers are now comfortably in, so it's okay,
Yeah, I think so. But do you think that they're not going to take the foot off the gas though yet, right? It's a little too early for that.
They haven't.
Sort of thing, right?
They I don't know if you know, but on Sunday night they scored on 5 consecutive shots where you were setting up the show, and I don't do any work. I just roll in here around 7:50. They scored on.
You want to admit
it? I openly admit they scored on 5 straight shots against Nashville and took a 6-0 lead in the first period.
Yeah, that I did not know.
Nashville is struggling, and they're without their top defenseman, but the Rangers they're doing their part. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Well, folks, that's what's on tap, and now we're going to go right in to Hero of the Week. So, folks, when you hear this song, that means it's time for the Hero of the Week, brought to you by the Blue Line Deli half-price hero, which this week is the Hockey Night in New York, featuring delicious grilled chicken, buffalo sauce, mozzarella cheese, and avocado in a wrap. Stop on in to the Blue Line Deli and Bagels Huntington location. Mention Hockey Night in New York for half off. And with that, Christopher Botta, who is your hero of the week?
Easy choice for me. It's Kyle Palmieri, who I'm sure I've never picked as a hero of the week yet, because when he's had his good weeks, I probably wasn't involved with the show, or somebody else was doing the show. But big respect to Kyle from Long Island. He's an up and down career with the Islanders, very much so. But on the bright side, I believe he's come up large, not just in his scoring, but his all around play. The giddy up is there, the want is there. Responsibly, defensively, he's done it all. And another thing that bodes well, again, this is, I get it, it's in the wishful thinking category, and Justin Bourne alluded to this too, but he's proven to be somewhat of a big game guy. Like, he was very good for the Islanders in the playoffs.
Yes.
Like, he got, 2 goals in 18 regular season games after they got him, and then something like 7, 8, or 9 in the playoffs. So, and he strikes me as a clutch guy. So that is another positive. He's like one of those guys who a couple weeks ago you wouldn't be thinking about him in the playoffs. Now it's like, all right, we could roll with this guy. So big respect to Palmieri, because it's not easy to overcome when you're slumping like that and people are counting you out, and you're battling injuries. But really impressive. So well done, Kyle Palmieri.
I think that's a great choice, and you bring up a good point about maybe his struggles in the regular season, but he has shined in big pressure games and in the playoffs, and hopefully if and when they get there, we'll see more of that from him. But, you do have some fans that I've spoken to and talked to, and like, oh, we kind of lost that trade-off with Palmieri and Eberle, huh? It'd be nice to have Eberle still on the team, right? Because he has struggled a bit during the regular season, but, if they get to the dance, I think, maybe that's a notion that those fans maybe start to forget if he does perform the way he has.
Yeah, if they get in this spot and we get to the show a couple weeks from now and you say, who would I want, Eberle or Palmieri, I'm totally fine with going with Palmieri to that dance. Who is your hero of the week, Sean?
Well, I'm sticking with the new guy, Pierre Engvall. I was singing his praises earlier in the show, and I'm sticking with him now. He is once again unleashed on Long Island after living in the shadows up in Toronto, going 2-2-4 on the trip, and settling in nicely with Kyle Palmieri and Brock Nelson on that second line. So listen, again, I'm not expecting the world out of this guy, but it's nice to have a little fun, right? 5 points in the 7 games that he's been here, and if he can be a surprise bright spot, especially while we still wait for Matt Barzal to come back, and he kind of helps everybody else pull on the rope, carry the load, with Anders Lee scoring goals, Brock Nelson, Palmieri, J.G. Pajot, and they can kind of keep winning by committee, and he, kind of continues to gel with the team and helps out with that. I think it's great stuff. So Pierre Engvall.
One of the questions about Engvall seemed to be like, is this question as to whether he has that fire? Right?
Yeah.
Well, and what we don't know is whether if he's always had this fire to be more than he is.
Mm-hmm.
To hear Justin tell it, and let's face it, Justin Bourne's not only in Toronto, but Justin Bourne was a coach with the Toronto Marlies when Engvall was there. So when he talks about what they told Pierre in terms of this is what we're looking for you, like you're setting this almost limitations on him. You do this, we'll be happy. Well, if Pierre Engvall is somebody who always said to himself, I want more, I need more, well, what more can you ask for? So he's starting to take advantage of it. He's playing for a contract. He's going to get paid no matter what, somehow or the other, by somebody. But if he wants to get a little more and get more responsibility, the opportunity is there for him.
Without a doubt, and even more so in the sense that there is a certain someone who's making $5 million right now who isn't getting into the lineup.
Yes, I assume you're talking about Josh Bailey.
I am.
Yeah. Listen, hey, I don't even know what to say about Josh anymore because it gets to a point where then it almost feels like unfair, right? Good Islander. So over 1,000 games, class guy.
Right.
When somebody gets hurt, he'll be the next one back in it. You can't sit here and rule out that he's not going to have at least one more good moment before this season's over.
Sure.
Whether it's the regular season or postseason. So, you just root for the best. He's a class pro, and I don't just mean that in the category like good guy. He's somebody who will stay ready when he's called upon. But I give the coach credit and Lou and everybody else. He is the odd man out right now. Not an easy decision to make, but they also know that when he gets back in, he'll probably give him something because he almost always does.
He's going to get back in, and we have said on this show multiple times that he's been a playoff performer for this team too. And I would not be shocked at all if and when they get into the playoffs, he's dressing for game one because he has that experience. So we'll see if and when we get there. He's out of the lineup now. Guys like Engvall is playing well. Obviously, the coaching staff likes what they see out of Holmstrom because he's still in there. So look, they're moving on. They're playing well. So, why mess with a good thing? So hopefully they continue that. But that will do it for Hero of the Week. Kyle Palmieri and Pierre Engvall are your Heroes of the Week. Remember, if you stop on in to the Huntington location of Blue Line Deli and Bagels, mention Hockey Night in New York and get half off the Hockey Night in New York. So, Ed, Jay, how we doing, boys?
You get half off.
Half off, that's 50%.
That is 50%.
And mentioning us.
Is there? Were they smart enough? No offense, the Razzler family. Were they smart enough to put limit? Like, can I get 10 of them half off? Can I get?
That's not for us to decide.
I don't know.
That's something for Donnie and staff.
But
over there.
that's a good deal.
Yeah,
That's like a wholesale deal.
Yeah,
not bad, right? Well, look, they do great stuff over there. Donnie loves the fans. He loves the people coming in, the customers, and everything. They do a great job. So to allow us to, have a little sponsored segment here and give you 50%, help you get 50% off of Sammy. I mean, why not, right?
good deal.
Yeah,
Great
good
deal.
stuff.
We doing questions brewing?
You know we are, Ed.
Oh my goodness.
It's time for Questions Brewing, brought to you by Lost Farmer Brewing Company.
That's right, and we want to thank Lost Farmer for sponsoring this segment called Questions Brewing. So, Edzo, what do you got in the chat? Are we active?
Oh, we're active.
Excellent. Love
Yeah.
to hear it.
Especially Enzab tonight. Oh my God.
Yeah? He gave me a heads up on Twitter. He said, I'm going to be there. I'm going to be talking. I was like, all right, cool.
I mean, if no one else is stepping up, we got a lot of NZAB tonight.
Great.
All right, but we're going to start off with Mike, good old Mike. Based on how players are performing and number of roster players, barring injury, does Bailey play another game the rest of the season?
Sean just said yes.
Funny you should ask.
Yeah.
Funny you should ask.
He said he'll start in the game 1 of the playoffs.
I think he gets in game 1 if they get there, and I think whether it is by injury or maybe after a bad loss or something like that, and Lane wants to change the lineup up, I think we're going to see at least 1, probably 2 more games out of Josh Bailey, and I'm betting low there.
Keep in mind, and it's possible I'll miss it, but like there hasn't been any update about Matthew Barzal, right?
Mom has been the word.
Right. So, usually and they've been away, right? And maybe this is the week where you start to find out, is he even skating?
Nice to know.
So I don't know if it doesn't appear that he is close. So it's just something to keep in mind. Okay. What else you got?
All right. We're starting off with NZAB here. When Barzy comes back, where do they slot him and who sits?
Okay, this is great. Segue after segue here. So he's going to go back on the first line on Horvat's right wing, I would think. And I guess they'll keep Lee on the left flank. And as far as who comes out, barring everybody else is healthy, I think actually this came up last week. And I think Holmstrom is the guy that probably sits. I think he comes out because everybody kind of in the middle 6 down are all playing well, from Fasching on down to Engvall now. So I think Engvall has actually kind of earned him. So we kind of speculated about him last week. Maybe he's a guy that comes out, but I think he's looking pretty solid now. So Holmstrom would be the guy for me.
Yeah, I'd say it's between Engvall and Holmstrom, and right now Engvall is blowing the doors off of Holmstrom. So Holmstrom's that middle guy, right? He's not as good on that bottom 6. He's not good enough to be in the top 6. So
right.
I agree that he's fighting for his spot here.
Well, I hope you're not tired of roster questions. Next one is coming from Tom Boyle.
T-Boyle.
If Aho is out, do you see replacing him with Bolduc or Wotherspoon?
Okay, great. So we mentioned that before, and listen, I haven't seen enough out of either one of those guys to be able to say definitely Bolduc or definitely Wotherspoon.
Well, if you're looking at it as somebody for a little more offense, I'm asking you because I don't know. If you're looking at somebody who's a little more offense, because that's what you lose with Aho, I think Bolduc, right?
Bolduc showed a little flair. Sure, maybe give him another chance. But listen, if the roster comes out the next day, regardless of who Lane puts in there, I'm not getting upset either way. Like, oh, man, they're going to lose the next game because they went Wotherspoon over Bolduc, right? Like, I just don't think there's enough disparity yet between the two of them. But, yeah, maybe I lean Bolduc.
It's prospects and all that whole scene. It's just it's never not funny and interesting to me because one thing that I like was I'm not blaming anybody for not reporting it, but Bolduc came up, did well, got a bunch of good press, and then he went down during the All-Star break. And all I could tell you is statistically at Bridgeport, he then proceeded to be crap for like 2 games. I get it, right? You have your good games and your bad games, and the AHL is tough. But it's just a reminder that like these are flawed players, right? So part of me also kind of wondered that like him going down, which he had to, I understand, right? But does that set you back a little bit? So, but you would think it would be Bolduc, but what I think is that the coach and the GM are a little more comfortable with Wotherspoon. So it's a close call, but it's hey, Aho's come a long way, right?
Yes.
Fans and podcasters are bemoaning, probably too hard a word, bemoaning his potential loss for a little while. Whereas a year ago, it was anybody can somebody else
going
play?
Into this season. We didn't think he had a shot. We thought Salo was going to be the guy.
Correct.
What happened there?
Correct.
Eddie, what do you got?
And Zab again. He asks, do you tell Romanov to chill with some of the big hits as every time he gets jumped and we lose him for 2 minutes? Do you think the NHL should take a look at situations like that? Maybe adding a penalty to a guy who jumps a clean hit or something more harsh.
Yeah, that's come up. Somebody mentioned it lately because in another game that happened and that guy got jumped. And now
we ranted about
hurt.
this.
So I think the NHL will be looking at that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Romanov has to keep playing his game. No, do not
but
shy
I don't have
away
a problem
from
with his game. No.
Absolutely
I don't have a problem
not.
with the hitting part.
Yeah,
You love it.
keep knocking guys into the boards, onto the ice. But I do think the league has to, maybe I don't know what the exact solution is, but maybe there's some sort of retaliation sort of penalty that kind of, I suppose encourages these players to let those big hits go, because we said it when we had this rant about it. Like, there was a time where if you got your clock cleaned, you got back up and you got back into the game, and nobody was making you pay for it because it was a clean damn hit. Now, if it's dirty, if it's an elbow, if it's a headshot, yeah, absolutely fair game. Defend your player. But every time a guy, gets caught with his head down or just gets rocked, trying to come through the zone, I just think it's silly, all this retaliation. It's not for me.
Agreed. Before we go back to what's this fellow's name asking the questions?
Enzab, I believe that.
Is there anyone else who has any
09.
questions?
Yes. Well, Trotty 19 asks, related to Romanov, how great is watching Romanov grow up before our eyes?
Well, I don't go that far, but Sean gave him a big pat on the back with a tweet last night, I think it was. So
yes.
I'll let you answer that.
Yeah.
I just think he's okay. I don't think I don't know what to tell you.
Look, I don't think he's established himself as a top player for this team yet or anything like that. I think he still has to earn that first round draft pick that he was traded for. But I do still recognize the fact that he's young. Just like that, I think he's still only 22. I think the offensive side of the game is coming along. I don't expect him to be a power play quarterback or anything like that, but I kind of envisioned this whole, Vladimir Malikov, Darius Kasparaitis pairing with him and Noah Dobson. And I think he's not coming along as quickly as we'd like to, but it doesn't necessarily mean that he's not going to develop into a more well-rounded defenseman. But I do like the physical style. I do like the fact that opposing forwards entering the zone do have to keep their heads up, and they do have to kind of think twice about what how they're going to approach it. And he makes them pay. And I honestly I think that's going to pay dividends in the playoffs. I'm looking forward to seeing him in the playoffs.
Agreed again. I'm enjoying watching Ed look at the questions.
Oh, yeah?
You're intrigued by what to ask next? Or
yeah.
Is there...
Well,
and by the way,
in all fairness to Enzab, he's got a lot, but I'm trying to get other people in there if I can.
I'd say we got time for like 3 total max, right?
Three's a great number. It's a magic number.
Use your judgment.
Okay, well, we're gonna go back to Tom Boyle here.
Okay.
What is with the early turnaround? This is the second time this season.
The early turnaround?
What does that even mean?
I'm not sure what that means. Yeah, I don't think we're getting that one. Maybe if Tom can explain himself, but I'm not sure.
Unless he means like you posting the show pretty soon after I leave here.
No,
I don't think so.
Post you the turnaround of the podcast.
I'm not sure.
I thought maybe you said something about it.
We can get back to that if he explains it a little better.
Please, Tom, we need clarification.
Yes.
I thought you guys might have known what an early turnaround would be. I mean,
I don't know.
This was asked late into the show, so
fair enough. Hopefully he clarifies. What else you got?
All right, we got Enzab.
Wow, welcome back.
Are there any other teams that do not send their broadcast team on certain trips? The San Jose game, Brendan and the gang were in New York.
Yeah, well, what we know for sure now is at least 2 other teams are, and it's the Rangers and the Devils. They said that MSG Network has done it. It's unfortunate. It's garbage. It's bullshit. It's everything. Now, the one thing, the Lou Lamoriello does not let the announcers on the team charter. And nobody else does that. So if you're the network or whoever's responsible for paying for this, you usually fly for free with the team, right? So when I was with the team, right, the Howie and Billy or Joe Micheletti and plus our radio announcers flew with us, which only makes sense. It's easier for them. It's a better lifestyle.
Sure.
It's completely crazy that there's this idea that they're not part of the team. There is a big part of the team. Not unless say as anyone, but they are very important. And if something was to happen on the plane, for example, right, somebody got drunk, something happened, right, like that, it's going to be off the record. There's an understanding with that with everyone in the league.
Yeah.
So this idea that they're not part of the team, the trainer goes, Kimber, the PR staff goes, whatever. It's so freaking ludicrous. It's incredible. So to answer your question, they're not the only one, and perhaps there's other teams besides MSG Network. I think it's unfortunate. It's an unnecessary savings of several grand, but in the scheme of things, I don't see it as a difference maker, and I think it's a loss. But
Right. Tom clarified himself.
He did.
He meant to say back-to-back games. So the 7 p.m. start, then a 5 p.m. start. That's the second time.
It happens from time to time. The Islanders used to play 5 o'clock games on Saturday at home back when they played day games or earlier games. And it's not uncommon. I think it's crazy. If I was commissioner of the NHL, the regular season would be at least 12 games shorter, and I would try to have as few back-to-back games as possible. I think it hurts the quality of the game. Tell a quick story. If I haven't said it before, I'll try to bring it in under 30 seconds. A long, long time ago, when Gary Bettman was in his early days as commissioner of the NHL, he flew home with us. Yes, I'm telling a story from the charter, but it's not such a bad one. He flew home with us from a game in Tampa Bay. He was in Tampa Bay to drop a puck, to do some media, whatever was going on, and he asked if he could fly home with us because he lives in New York. So, of course, Milbury said yes. We're on the plane. It's a 7:30 game. The guys are wearing ice bags. They're taped. Like the usual drill, right? The rough game, whatever. And we're just shooting the shit, like Milbury and Bettman and whoever's sitting toward the front, and I'm there. And Bettman says, "So when's your next game?" And Mike goes, "Tomorrow." And Gary goes, "No, really, when's your next game?" And he goes, "Tomorrow." And he's like, it hit. I think it hit home for him that this is not easy. You're in Florida. Right. And by the way, not coal mine, usual thing, right? They're not coal mining. They're playing hockey. They make a lot of money, right? But you play a game at 7:30 in Tampa, and you're sore, and they fly home in 3 hours. They fly commercial, get in their cars, drive home half an hour later, and then they get up and they do it all again the next day. I don't know how you feel after your games when you play, but
probably a little more sore than they do.
Yeah, and especially the guys playing 28 minutes and things like that. So a coin and those. So anyway, the games come real quick. The 5 o'clock thing, it happens from time to time. I don't think that hour makes a difference. I think sometimes the guys don't mind it because if they have a 5 o'clock game, they're not going to have any morning skate or even a meeting. So they just sleep in and they show up at the rink a few hours before the game.
Yeah, and I'm sure it happens to every team fairly evenly, right? As long as that's the case, then, what's fair is fair, I suppose.
By the way, the Islanders had that afternoon game a couple of weeks ago against Detroit.
12:30, yeah.
And they won. And I'm telling you, this is something I can tell you from my experience there. If you're a New York athlete and you win that game, and now you don't have another game for a few nights, and you're off on Saturday. So whether it's with your family, your wife, your girlfriend, just the guys going out, that's a great time. What I'm saying is the guys don't mind that afternoon game, and they really don't mind it when they get the 2 points because it's a night to be young again and go into New York City or go wherever the hell you want. So I wouldn't, they should have more day games.
Okay. Do you have one last one we could squeeze in?
Yeah. Well, we got from Tradier 19. What D-man did the Islanders target over the summer? Aho sucks. Witherspoon and Bulldog aren't ready for prime time.
I don't even know if I'm ready for that question yet.
The organization doesn't think that Aho sucks.
That's probably
we're getting a lot of questions. Enzeb had a question right prior to that about Aho. Is it time to move away from Aho?
Well, again, I mean, we didn't even think he was going to be part of the mix in the beginning of the season. Salo didn't step up to the plate. Aho kind of did. Is he a flawed defenseman? Absolutely. I think he's also, at the same time, I think he's also impressed us this year, becoming a 20-point defenseman with, 11 games to go. And I think there's some positives. He's definitely better. This is the best hockey he's played since he's started with the organization. But it's still a guy whose minutes you want to shelter because he's prone to the odd mistake, mental mistake, giveaway, whatever the case may be. So, yeah, I wouldn't mind upgrading his position over the summer if, that player is out there. But sitting here today on March 19th, I'm not sure who that defenseman is.
When I say the organization likes him, not just even being kind of a wise guy or whatever, they had, it is not difficult to add a defenseman at the trade deadline, a competent NHL defenseman. And the proof is that there were several of them, right? Kulikov went for a third.
True.
I didn't get the sense that Lou Lamoriello was losing sleep over there was somebody who got away or whatever, because he would have, if it made that much of a difference in his eyes and the coaching staff's eyes, he would have paid the price for it. I'm not defending his lack of movement. I'm just trying to explain it. And we talked about it in the post-trade deadline show that the conversation was, all right, well, he's available. Well, are you going to play him over Aho? Again, I don't have an opinion on this because I don't know enough about the game to be able to tell you that I think this guy is worse than this guy at that level, right? When we're talking about a third pair defenseman.
Right.
So I think he's a guy they are very comfortable with, they like, and I don't think he's going anywhere. I'm not saying he's going to be a fixture here for a long time, but this idea that like he's done, no, that's not the case. And if he winds up sitting out sometime, Lane Lambert will be asked the question at the morning skate on Tuesday. What are you missing in Sebastian Aho? And he'll tell you what he's missing. And watch the clip. I'm not saying you should agree with him, but it'll be the head coach of the freaking New York Islanders telling you what he thinks of Sebastian Aho.
Yeah, I think over this last 2 years, including this year, we've seen the most warts in the defense than we have in since the Trotz / Lambert era has begun.
But Dobson had his moments enough. I'm sorry to cut you off. Even against San Jose, that Butch talked about mistakes he was making.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. No, I'm including him in this discussion here. Is that as much promise as Dobson has, and as much as he's accomplished, especially on the offensive side of the puck, is that he's still figuring things out on the back end, and it's cost him some costly goals against, and guys like him and Aho got to clean it up. Even Mayfield is struggled a little bit. I feel like he's been more solid in the past, and it could be a product of who he's been paired up with as well. Sometimes a defensive pairing is more the sum of its parts than it is any one individual. But I think we've seen more leaks out of defense than we had. When you go back to the squads, when you had Taves and when you had Letty and even Boychuk in the earlier parts of this tenure and stuff like that. And I think we're not in Brian Strait territory, going back that far. But yeah, I think that's been one of the and it's funny because they're still one of the better teams defensively overall in the NHL. But I suppose as Islander fans, knowing how good they have been recently on defense, this is probably the most leaks they've sprung, since the beginning of that. So yeah, I definitely hear it. They could use some more, solid defensemen on the back end, or at least these guys to step up and play more defensively. And hopefully because they're young, they get there. Otherwise, yeah, maybe Lou looks at it in the summer.
So as I leave you, and I think you have Stefan next week hosting.
Yes.
Maybe the plot line now becomes, do they really try to get that? I mean, of course, they want to win every game, but is the 7th spot now the goal in a series against Carolina, against somebody,
Hey, it's there. I mean, look, all the points you made about Pittsburgh maybe not being as real as we thought, it's there. And the point was made about Svechnikov not being there. Now, I don't really look. Listen, you're picking your poison between Boston and Carolina, but I don't know.
Mean, Boston, yeah. I mean, neither of them are. They're both suboptimal.
Right. Where I'm going is the Islanders haven't historically matched up well against Carolina.
That's true. Yeah.
So that's why I'm saying is pick your poison. Games. But yeah, especially with Svechnikov out, like if you can make a push for that top wild card, you go for it. Anything above that is completely out of the question now. And it's just last week we were kind of just like, hey, focus on getting in. Maybe now you get a little greedier because it seems like there's an opportunity there. Maybe if Pittsburgh happens to lose at least one of those games in hand, you look at it a little more, and Florida for that matter, you look at it a little more realistically and say, hey, these guys may be able to squeak into that top spot and make some noise against Carolina, sure.
Well, I look forward to being back with you. For the fans, I would say in 2 weeks, which I think is a Lost Farmer show.
Yes.
If I'm asking you about bands that you might have been in, that's probably not a good. That means the 2 weeks didn't go well for the Islanders.
Right.
If that never comes up, that means we're talking playoffs. So, thanks everybody.
All right, folks. Eddie, cue that music. We're gonna wrap things up. So, folks, want to thank you all for tuning in to twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY and your favorite podcast providers. And a big thanks to Justin Bourne of Sportsnet and author of Down and Back on alcohol, family, and life in hockey. Once again, you can get that wherever books are sold, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and everywhere else. A big thanks to our sponsors, starting with Blue Line Deli and Bagels, located at 719 West Jericho Turnpike in Huntington. Check them out at BlueLineDeli.com. Also, a big thanks to Lost Farmer Brewing Company, located at 63A 2nd Street in Mineola. Check them out at LostFarmerBrewing.com. And as Chris mentioned, once again, viewing party there on Sunday, April 2nd, 5 o'clock pregame show, 6 o'clock puck drop. It will be tons of fun. And a big thanks to Main Street Board Game Cafe, located at 307 Main Street in Huntington Village. Check them out at mainstboardgamecafe.com. You can find Chris on Twitter at ChrisBottaNHL. You can find myself at Shawnee Hockey. You can follow the show at Hockey Night NY at Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. For Jay, for Ed, for Chris Botta, I'm Sean Cuthbert. We've been Hockey Night in New York. Have a great rest of your nights.